Hi everyone, my name is Justin Wigard. I use he, him pronouns, and I'm a University Distinguished Fellow at Michigan State University. You can find me on Twitter at Justin Wigard or at my email, wigardju@msu.edu. Today, I want to briefly talk through my fall 2021 comics course, English 325, Studies in Graphic Narratives, and focus on three specific points related to that course. My students' hand-drawn COVID Chronicles, the practices of critical making, and experiential learning. So, at Michigan State University, English 325 has been historically taught with an emphasis on close reading, semi-canonical graphic novels, things like Mouse, Persepolis, Watchmen, and the like. With my iteration, I really wanted to focus on a unique and contemporary version of the course, one that was explicitly interdisciplinary, connected to the ongoing global COVID-19 pandemic, anti-racism and inclusivity practices, and focus it really clearly around practices of critical making, or otherwise known as the conjoined application of critical thinking and material making or production. So in this course, how this manifested is that students read comics each week and then created one-page comics accompanied by a short critical reflection on their process. So they had options to create one-page illustrated definitions of key terms, one-page graphic book reviews of one of our primary comics from that week, or a one-page graphic medicine piece. These comics would build into 4-page midterms and then a final 12-page comic that students actually received a physical printed copy of at the end of the course. As an upper-level elective, however, this class is comprised primarily of students majoring in literature, the sciences, communication, and more, with very few students actually coming in with drawing or comics experience. So as a result, I brought in experiential learning elements whenever possible to provide practical support and understanding of comics, including interviews with creators like Afrofuturist Tim Fielder and Trung Nguyen, creator of The Magic Fish. Students also submitted their comics to the MSU Special Archives on Comics, the Comic Arts Collection, and they displayed their comics in an online public exhibit. And so these projects can all be found on my website at justinwigard.com/English325. That link is going to be on most of the other slides. However, the real crux of the course and why I'm, excited to be presenting at the Graphic Medicine Conference happened really organically and spontaneously. It was actually driven by my students. In our Graphic Medicine unit, which took place about halfway through the semester, we read through COVID Chronicles and Anthology. After our discussion of COVID Chronicles, one brave student, one of my students named Claudia, raised her hand and asked if the students could try making their own one-page COVID Chronicles. Up to this point, students had the other three options to complete their weekly assignments: illustrated definitions, graphic reviews, and graphic medicine proper. But I paused and sort of discussed openly with all of the students whether they'd like to give this a shot. After some quick conversation, they agreed that they'd like to give it a try. This student-centered moment proved to be a pivotal one in the course, as it really shifted the course outcomes, particularly the students' comics, to directly engaging with and making pandemic-inspired comics, rather than simply engaging and reading with comics during this unique time. Students actually gravitated towards the new assignment, whereas many were hesitant to talk about the pandemic due to continuing to live through the experience. This kind of helped them begin to share critical reflections on how they survived the first few weeks of the pandemic, or what monotony, connection, and grief actually looked like in isolation, how campus changed for them from 2020 and spring 2020 rather to fall 2021, and more. They bonded over shared experiences of confusion and chaos as they left campus suddenly, or they bonded over stress over isolation due to exposure, things like dealing with Zoom University and a full year of online classes. Or for some of my students, the experience of graduating high school in a completely online environment. While my students exhibited signs and open dialogue and collaborative activity befitting a community of learners up to this point in the semester, this moment, this experience really brought them together as a community of people with common stories of the pandemic experienced individually. And so beyond that, they actually applied critical thinking to how these stories could be told visually. In thinking about the final outcomes of the course, their 12-page comic, their archival submission, and how they might look in the online public exhibit, students worked to tailor these comics for a community beyond the classroom. And so the student-created COVID Chronicles became a primary outcome for this experiential learning component to my course. But more than that, they fundamentally changed the nature of our course. So I'm now actually deploying that COVID Chronicles assignment in my summer 22 course right now on graphic memoirs and graphic medicine. And so I'm very deeply indebted to my students. In the interest of time, I'll just mention that I have an article coming out on this course in the summer 2022 issue of Image Text, the Interdisciplinary Comics Journal, specifically co-written with two of my students from English 325, including Claudia, actually. I talk more broadly about the course structure, outcomes, and pedagogy, but my students also provide critical insights from their perspectives as students. Beyond that, I'll reiterate that my students' comics, including their COVID Chronicles, as well as all of the course outcomes, structures, and syllabus for my course can be found on the link here, justinwigard.com/English325. And you can always reach me at Justin Wigard on pretty much all social media. I'm very, very sorry to be missing the in-person conference, but I'm looking forward to attending next year, and I hope you all have a really fabulous conference. Thanks to my fellow panelists and my panel organizer, Michael Green, and have a really wonderful conference, everyone. Bye-bye.